The Warrior's Whisper by S. E. Smith. Performed by David Brenin. Chapter 1. Aditsan Claw sank to his knees on the plateau and stared out across the vast desert. The sticky dampness of blood made the velvet shirt he was wearing cling to his skin. He ignored the discomfort. The fabric helped stem the blood from the deep cut to his side. His stiff fingers slowly opened, and the bow in his hand fell to the rocky sand beside him. His gaze beheld the beautiful mountains, and for a brief second he almost forgot how much pain he was in. Shadows crossed over the mountains, causing the reddish rocks to look even darker than they were. He looked up at the clear blue sky dotted with high clouds. A wry smile curved his lips when he saw the remains of a contrail. For a moment, he imagined he was on one of the huge jets traveling to Toronto, London, or Sydney. That was where he belonged. Not here in the middle of nowhere, Utah, trying to pretend that he was one of his distant ancestors. "Who was I trying to kid?" he thought, with a self-deprecating chuckle. He winced and wrapped his arm around his ribs. He was pretty sure he had cracked a few during his fall. The pain made his head spin. He bowed his head and released a shallow, shuddering breath. If he were lucky, George, his executive secretary, would send out a search party for him. In 2 or 3 days. All of this was his fault. It wasn't like he hadn't been warned. Hell, even George had been shocked and asked him if perhaps a visit to the gym might be a better way to prove he hadn't grown soft. He breathed slowly through his nose and opened his eyes. Gritting his teeth against the pain, he reached for his grandfather's old bow. He used the sturdy weapon as a cane to help him stand. By the time he was back to his feet, he was panting. The sweat on his face made him feel chilled, and he was having trouble catching his breath. "No more sitting or kneeling. If I do, I probably won't be able to get up again," he silently cautioned himself. There was a path across the plateau and wound down to a river. He would be able to find some shade, relief from the intense heat, enough vegetation to make a small fire, and water to drink and wash his battered body. "Never again," he swore out loud. It was amazing how speaking something out loud seemed to give him a bit more strength, even if he was talking to himself. He decided concentrating on something other than how painful it was to move might help. It wasn't like he didn't have experience with putting the painful parts of his life in a box and moving forward. Of course, most of those moments had been mental, not physical. "Think of this as a great workout at the gym," he muttered. That was fine and dandy until his foot slipped on some loose stones. He released a long list of expletives. How could he have been so stupid? "If anyone had ever suggested a week ago that I'd dress up like one of my ancestors and go play in the wilds, I would have thought them mad," he muttered. He stopped and rested his hand against the cliff. His world had come undone 4 days ago, when his beloved grandfather had died. Niall Claw had been his last connection to his former life. His grandfather hadn't blinked an eye when his mother handed her only child over to him at the tender age of 6. She had left and never returned. A part of him was surprised that his mother had kept him that long. It would be years before he discovered that his father had died before his birth in a car accident that took 4 other members of their tribe. He had visited the spot once a few years ago. One of the families of the men still maintained the roadside markers in remembrance of their fallen family member. He took a deep breath and forced his body to obey his command to continue walking. His raw fingers stung as he dragged them along the sandstone wall. He ignored the pain. It was better to suffer a few more cuts than to fall again. "When this is over, I'm never looking back again. My life here is over," he vowed through clenched teeth. "If you make it out of here," the sardonic
Sample complete. Ready to continue?